Good evening, everybody. How you going? Welcome, and it's good to see you on this first of a series of 7 evenings that we're going to be presenting to you with Macquarie University. I'm Alex DiPrinzio. I'm the Education Officer for the New South Wales Federation of Community Language Schools, and I'm very proud to announce that we are having, for the very first time for community language schools with Macquarie University, a short course. Now, just for your information, we've got over 800 people that have registered for this course in the last couple of weeks, which is phenomenal. And you'll see just why. We've got a great team of presenters, academics, specialists. Just a couple of housekeeping things, as we always do. I'm actually recording this session. So please, if you don't want your beautiful faces to be recorded, you're very welcome to just turn off your camera, and then you won't have to worry about being shown to the world, because that's what's going to be happening, because we have a YouTube channel. We'll be posting it up on there. Now, the other thing is this: can I please ask you all to mute your microphones for the moment? Just mute them. Make sure that they're muted. Professor Benson will also be asking the same thing. I'll make sure that that there's no external noise, but please be sure to keep them off. I can see that already. Great. The other thing is that there's a link that I have put in the chat. Every session, I want people that will be attending to fill in a Google Doc. It's just a survey form. You tick the session. For that session, you'll get the certificate of attendance. Now, you're not getting separate certificates. You're getting for whatever you attend. So if you attend one, then you get just the one. Okay, the 1 hour or one session. That's for you. Anyone who's interested in NESA accreditation, don't forget that NESA this year was not accepting new courses. This is a new course, so it's not going to be counted. That's not just us. Federation is an endorsed provider, as is Macquarie University, but there are no accredited courses, no new ones. Okay, but if anyone is interested in their PD, these are the accredited teachers in the system here. Your PD can, or these sessions can be counted towards teacher identified PD. All right, that's enough from me. I've got a bit of a spiel for the community languages schools afterwards, but for now, I'm going to cross over to Professor Phil Benson and to Alice Chick and to Macquarie University. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Benson. I'm of the Multilingualism Research Centre and the Department of Linguistics at Macquarie University. So I'm leading this professional development session tonight, and I have 2 co-hosts who are helping out with the technology, particularly Dr. Alice Chick and Miss Ha-An Nguyen, both from Macquarie University. And Alice, of course, is from the Federation board as well. This will be a kind of introduction. This is a series, as you know, a series of professional development sessions. So this will be a kind of introduction to the series, and I think other presenters will expand on some of the things that I'm going to introduce tonight. One of the main ways to participate is through chat, and I would like to, can you see a message at the bottom of my screen here? It just says, please type the name of the language that you teach into the Zoom chat. Nothing else, just if you teach Korean, just type Korean. If you teach Greek, just type Greek. If you teach Arabic, type Arabic, whatever, whichever language you teach. And that will give us, we'll try to show how many different languages taught are represented later. To begin with, I want to introduce some of the Zoom management tools that we're going to use. I'm sure many of you are familiar with teaching with Zoom. You are doing that already. So my apologies if you already know. Some people maybe not so familiar. So first of all, could I ask you, if you want to participate in all of the activities during these professional development sessions, please log in from a computer or from a laptop or from a tablet. Mobile phones will, if you come from a mobile phone or a phone link, you may not be able to do some of the activities that we have because they're not available on the mobile version of Zoom. And also, we are now 160. This is quite amazing, actually. We are 160 participants and growing by the minute, which means we're using a lot of internet bandwidth. It will help if you switch off your video, and also if you don't use virtual background, also can help. That will make sure that things run smoothly. So we'll be using these Zoom features. We'll be using video and audio. We'll be using chat. So please make sure that you know where the chat button is. Yeah. And we'll also be using breakout rooms for small group activities. So when we have activities, you'll be in a room, I think, with 4 other people. We'll be in groups of 5 to do group activities. Now, we will organize that, don't worry about it. And there'll be instructions for everything that needs to be done there. As Alex said, please mute your audio and keep your video switched off during the full class sessions, unless you actually wish to speak to the whole class. That means that we don't get background noises. Now, you're muted automatically, but you can unmute yourself. So please don't do that accidentally, unless you actually want to say something to the whole class. We are also going to use, the third tool we're going to use, apart from Zoom, is we are going to use shared Google Docs while we're in the breakout rooms. I'll come to that in a moment. So Alex has explained that the video and audio will be recorded and shared with participants who can't participate live tonight. The chat and Google Docs are available to participants during the session, but will not be shared. Actually, we will share the Google Docs that you produce, because we'll explain that at the end, but they will be useful. Okay, and the activities during breakout rooms are not recorded. You should know that the chat is actually recorded, and even you should be aware that the private chat is recorded. We don't want to do that, but that's a feature of Zoom recording. We won't look at the private chat, but you should be aware that it is recorded. Okay. Breakout rooms. During the breakout session, you'll be automatically assigned to a room with a small group of participants. Before you go to the room, you should use the link in the chat to open the relevant Google Doc. Now, there are going to be 2 Google Docs for this session. And I believe, can you open them now, Alice? Alice, are the links in the chat now? I'm not hearing anything. Yes, there are links in the chat. There are links going up into the chat now. So you have 2 Google Docs. One is called Activity 1 and one is called Activity 2. You'll see those links several times, but there are only 2. There are only 2 documents, and they're called 1 and 2. So you'll see them, and I'll make sure you have them before you go into the first activity. Okay. Now at the end of the session, you can download the Google Docs. So you will record your responses to activities by typing into the Google Doc. And your main feedback, the main way that you will find out what other groups are doing and what ideas other groups have, is by looking at the Google Docs. Yeah, because there are too many of us really to share all of the group activities by video. Just noticed that one person has put in the chat, the only way I can attend is through my phone because I travel back from work where I teach. I completely understand that, and that's fine. It just means that it may be difficult for you to participate in the breakout room activities. They require you to have more than one screen open at the same time. Okay. Let's begin with a quick activity that we will do using chat. So you need to find the chat button and make sure you can add something into the chat. And I'd like to ask you to type in just one word or a short phrase. By short phrase, I mean 2 or 3 words, not more than that, to describe the children that you teach, how the children that you teach learn, how they learn, or what do you think are their feelings about language learning. And our 2 co-hosts, Alice and Ha-An, they will be collecting up the words that you type in, and we'll try to put them in the word cloud later, a little later, so that you can see what you have done. So I'm just going to be quiet myself for a few minutes while you are doing that. So please think of words or short phrases to describe the children that you teach, and particularly think about how are the children that you're teaching different to yourself, different to myself, because we all draw on our own experience of learning at school, but we have to remember that the experience for children today is very different to our own experience. So that's what we're trying to get at here. So I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes. Don't worry about that. And I'm going to be looking at the chat. Proud, confident, energetic. Yeah, these are great words. Engaged. Wow, so fast. I'm seeing enthusiastic, fun, engaged, means to an end, inspired, eager, inquirer. Struggling. Need to keep them busy. Enjoy social interaction, yes. I'm so happy to see eager to learn coming up so often. There may be one more minute for this because they're still coming in. Okay, the chat messages are starting to slow down. So we'll move on from there a little bit. Do keep typing them in, don't worry, carry on. But I'll move on a little, and Alison Hyan will be compiling some of those answers, and you'll see we'll see the overall picture later. But
do you want to see a preliminary one?
Sure. I'll have to stop screen sharing, will I? Okay, so we got some. So these are your words. I have my own list of words. I'll show them to you, but I think your list is better than mine. So composite, engaging activities, mixed ability, happy, smart, interested, fun and eagerly, delight, curious, attentive, love the culture. Well, you're all very positive, and I'm really glad. I'm really glad to see that we are kind of on the same page. I think when I was at school, which was a long time ago, I'm not sure if these are the words I would use to describe myself. We were rather more passive than students are today. And I think we rather expected more from our teachers than students expect today. We were rather less active than our students are. Nobody's really used the word active, I think, but with hands-on activities, yeah.
Maybe in the later one, this is a preliminary.
Maybe that will come up later, yeah. So if your word is not there, it's because that was a preliminary result. So we'll try to do that again a bit later. And I'll go back to sharing my screen. So I looked at some descriptions on the web or about today's young people. They used to be called Generation Z. I see that now people are talking about Generation Alpha as a group, as a cohort who were born after around 2005 or 2010. Probably the students that you're teaching will be called Generation Alpha, not Generation Z anymore. But these are some of the words that came up. They're curious, they're caring, they're inclusive, they're transparent, they're networked, uncertain, anxious sometimes, nomadic, accepting, friend-oriented, realistic, open-minded, choosy, mobile, multiple, active, non-binary, fun-loving, digital, fluid. And this word, just in time, I'll come back to this word, just in time, in a moment. But I think these ways of describing young people are very similar to the ways that you have described your students. And to sum up my own view of that is that today's young learners, really, they are active and they are curious. They are reluctant to be taught in traditional ways. And for that reason, we sometimes think that they are easily bored, but I put bored in quotation marks there because I think if they are allowed to be active and curious, they are not bored. They're only bored if we kind of force them to sit down and teach them things that they don't think are particularly relevant to their lives. So I think that students are eager to learn if learning is relevant to their lives, and that's an important qualification. So many of you said that your students are eager to learn, and I think that's because you are making their learning relevant to their lives. And they're just-in-time learners. Now, what do I mean by just-in-time? Just-in-time actually was a marketing term. It refers to those shops which don't keep a lot of stocks. They don't have lots of things in the back of the shops, but they use computer systems to predict what they need at any particular time. So they use a just-in-time system, which means that the stock is delivered to the shop just in time to be sold. And I think many of our learners have that approach to learning. They want to learn things at the moment when they need to learn them. They don't particularly want to accumulate knowledge which will be useful, or which may be useful to them in the future when they can't see what the future is, when the future is very uncertain. But they are very eager to learn what they need to learn, or what they feel is important for them to learn just now at this moment. Now, what that means to me is that they are ready for autonomous learning. Now, my speciality is autonomous learning, and that's what I'm going to talk about mostly today. And I feel that what I've tried to do, just introducing that concept, is to say that autonomy and autonomous learning is a concept or an idea that has been around for a long time, but it is becoming more and more and more relevant to the kinds of learners that we find in our schools today. I just want to make a very brief point about community language maintenance, because we did a little bit of research. I don't want to overload the presentation with findings. This is actually the only one that I'm going to present, but I think it's very relevant. We have this idea that community languages are no longer used by the third generation. So a first generation of migrants will bring a community language to a country, but progressively that the language will be lost, and by the third generation, by the time of the grandchildren will not be using community language anymore. And this has been a very, I've heard this made in the masterclasses that we've been having recently, that the Federation has been organizing. It's a very common observation. Now, we did a little research, and we found out that that's not as true as it seems to be. And we found out that 14 ancestry groups, so this is based on census data, the 2016 Australian census data, where people report their ancestry, as you probably know, and also report whether they speak a language other than English and what language that is. So often we can match the ancestry group with the language that they report using. So 14 ancestry groups, more than 25% of third generation people report that they use the community language that's associated with that ancestry group. So that means grandchildren. So we have grandchildren saying they speak the language of their grandparents. And those groups are listed there: Assyrian, Bosnian, Greek, Indonesian, Iraqi, Khmer, Korean, Kurdish, Lao, Lebanese, Macedonian, Sudanese, Turkish, Vietnamese. Keep in mind, of course, these are not languages. These are ancestry groups, and they are terms that people report in the census. But they show that there is actually quite a lot of maintenance. There's a good future for community languages here. And I think if we were to compare these data with earlier years, we will find that this is increasing, that community language use is becoming more frequent among third generation and of course second generation as well of migrant communities. Now the question is why. I'm not going to make an activity of this, but I'm interested to know what you think about the reasons why, which you could post in the chat if you like. But we see 4 main reasons for that. One is increased mobility, that there's more contact among the generations, more contact, grandchildren have more contact with their grandparents and with family overseas, for example. There's the availability of popular culture and entertainment in community languages, or accessibility of the language. Of course, there's also digital communication tools. And last but not least, probably it should come first, there are your own efforts. There are the efforts of the community language schools to teach these languages and keep them going. But I think our research is showing that it's showing a positive picture across many languages. The ancestry groups here, you'll see that they are the ones that you don't see are the Western European languages, French, German, Dutch, and so on. And this really is because of the structure of the populations, I think, that the third generation of Dutch or German, for example, is typically much older than the third generation of these other ancestry groups. But I think across languages, there's a positive sign. Now, connecting that to the idea of autonomy, if we look at the reasons why this is happening, it is because there are more opportunities for young people to become engaged with community languages, not simply to learn them in school as if they are languages of some other country, but as really meaningful languages that play some important role in their lives. And again, this speaks to the importance of autonomy for me. So this is the question that I think we can pose. What kind of teaching do we need for today's young learners? Transmission teaching or autonomous learning? Now, you may be familiar with the idea of transmission teaching. It's the idea that knowledge is transmitted from a teacher or a book into the head of a learner. Another metaphor that was used by the great educator Paulo Freire from Brazil, he used the idea of the banking model. He said that it was an idea that teaching and learning was like putting deposits into a bank account, that the learner's mind was a bank account, and the teacher would put knowledge into the learner's head and it would accumulate. This picture I'm showing actually is a part of a series of pictures that was produced in France in 1900, more than 100 years ago. It was a vision of education in the future. And you can see the idea is that the books are dropped into a machine and the teacher's helper there is turning a handle, and somehow they are transmitted through wires into headphones and into the heads of the students. So that was his vision of education 100 years ahead. And I think to some extent that is true. It has come true. Education is like that to some extent, but also there's much more awareness of the importance of learners being active in their own learning. So at the present time, we are in a situation where it's in balance, I think. It's something, if we believe that learning should be a more active process, it's something we have to fight for, something we have to pay attention to and make sure we introduce in our own teaching. But it's also an idea that is in tune, I think, with the learners of our time. We're soon going into a breakout room, but I have about 5 minutes just to explain a couple of things about the idea of autonomy. What is it? If you saw the first slide, you'll know that I've written a book called Teaching and Researching Autonomy in Language Learning, and most of these ideas are found in that book. I'll just say simply that autonomy is about taking control of one's own learning. We can talk about autonomous learning, also independent learning, self-directed learning. These are similar ideas. But there's an idea of learners having more control over their learning, making more choices about their learning, what they learn, how they learn it, making more decisions about their learning, and generally being much more actively involved in the teaching and learning process. Excuse me. Now, I was very interested. Some of you may well have attended a masterclass that was organized by the Federation by Joseph LaBianco. And he introduced a very interesting model where he talked about active learning. And his model actually had a Venn diagram like this. And in fact, his is drawing on older research than mine. So this has happened in parallel, I think. And he talks about capacity, opportunity, and desire as being very important factors in modern teaching and learning of community languages. I use the terms ability, desire, and freedom in a similar way. So my ability is Joe's capacity. We both say desire. My freedom is his opportunity. And I think I also agree with Joe. We're on the same page here in that using this kind of diagram of overlapping circles. And the significance of the overlapping circles is that, well, first of all, it means that all three factors are important, but also that if you can enhance one factor, you will also enhance the others. So if you can increase a learner's desire to learn the language, that will improve their ability and it will give them more freedom. Similarly, if you improve their ability, that will increase their desire and their freedom. And if you increase their freedom, it may also increase their ability and desire. So these three factors are linked together. So just keep these three terms in mind. What I mean by that, by ability, I mean, we're talking here about the ability for autonomous learning. Knowing how to find language resources, knowing how to use language resources to learn the language. And very important in that is actually knowing the language and how to use the language. So the more that you know of a language, it's easier to find resources. It's easier to know how to use those resources for learning. So this is somehow related to the proficiency in the language. By desire, I mean wanting to know and learn the language. And this is an interesting point, I think, because there are two aspects to this. One is the intrinsic love of languages and language learning. Some people just love languages and they love learning languages. But we probably all know about multiple intelligences, and that means that some students are good at science, some are good at art, some are good at sports, some are good at music, and so on. So it's very difficult to actually foster an intrinsic love of languages and language learning. To some extent, people have it. It's something that you have or you don't have. And there will always be some students who are really, really keen on learning languages, but we cannot expect everyone to be like that. Most people need a reason. They need a reason to learn and situations to learn the language. And this is where we can work on desire. We can give students reasons to learn, help them find reasons to learn, and help them to find real situations where they can use their language. Freedom is about, I'll use the word opportunity. Freedom is about opportunities to choose content and activities in language learning. Freedom to pursue, sorry, that should be an, not and, A-N, not A-N-D. Opportunities to pursue an interest over time. Freedom is very much a question of time sometimes. It means that once somebody has got interested in something, it will take time for that interest to develop and time for them to get the benefits. So they need opportunities to do that. And for younger learners especially, opportunities to move around and opportunities to do things. If we keep them in their seats, they will get bored. So that's an aspect of the freedom we're talking about. Two other points to add to that is the idea of the personal relevance of learning. Many of you may know of David Noonan, who's an Australian language educator. Back in 1988, he made this really, really important point. It's impossible to learn everything of a language in class. You just don't have time to teach a whole language, to teach everything a student needs to know. Class time should therefore be used to teach those aspects of the language which the learners themselves deem to be the most urgently required. And I call this the principle of personal relevance. Language learning should be relevant to the learner, personally relevant to the learner. And I think if we keep that in mind, just that simple point, then we are doing a lot to adapt our teaching to today's young learners. And lastly is the idea of ownership of the language. This is a quotation from a researcher, Ernesto Maccaro, at Oxford University in the UK. Having a choice in their own language learning means taking control not only of the language being learnt, but also of the goal and purpose of that learning. Autonomy resides in being able to say what you want to say rather than producing the language of others. And I call that ownership of the language. So if there are 2 points that I would like to keep in mind or ask people to carry away from this, it's the idea that learning should be personally relevant to the learner, and also the idea that learning a language, the goal of learning a language, is for the learner to say what they want to say using that language, not to learn what we think they should be able to say or what we think is important for them to say, but to say what they want to say. Okay, so Alice, could you come in now, because we're going to go to breakout rooms and
Yes.
we have an activity which will take you about 10 minutes. First of all, now you're going to be sent automatically to a breakout room and you'll join about 4 other people in that room. You need to open the Google Doc for activity 1 right now. So the link is in the chat. Are you putting the link in the chat now, Alex? So it's a recent chat message.
Yes.
So click that link and open that document. You need to do that now because unfortunately you cannot access the chat once you're in the breakout room, I believe. So when you get to the breakout room, first of all, now there's a different task for each breakout room, and they relate to the 5 points that I've made: ability, desire, freedom, personal relevance, and ownership of language. They're asking you to think about how you can encourage one of those particular factors. Okay, so you'll need to find the task for your breakout room number, and then discuss and write one collective response for your room. So one person write down a summary of the response that you have. So after 10 minutes, you'll get a message to return to the main Zoom room, and then there'll be 5 minutes to look at other breakout room responses. Say, Alice?
You don't need a Google, you don't need a Gmail account. Everybody with the link can edit.
And really, it's important that one person in the room has the Google Doc, right? At least one person, so they can write.
So if you click on the link, you can automatically edit and access that shared Google Doc. So when you join the room, you will get a room number.
I've opened them up. I'm not sure if you can see them.
Yep, I think people are getting into the room now.
They are, yes. Still a few that we're waiting for.
Yep.
So the number of participants is dropping. Does that mean people are going into the rooms? Okay, good. So I've run a little bit late, Alice, so we'll need to say, ask people to come back about 6:50.
6:50.
Yeah.
There's still 65 people. It's not in the...
Yeah, I know. How are we going to do that?
Yeah. So hi, everybody. If you are still hearing us, could you please go to the breakout rooms, and a dialog box should open on your screen, and you just need to click join breakout room.
We still have about 40 people, but
Yeah, there could be people who got the mobile phone access.
we can ask.
If you are not in a breakout room, are you having some technical difficulties? You can put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and let us know.
Hi, I'm Sylvia and I'm supposed to be in breakout room 32.
Yep.
How do I access that, please?
Okay.
It says that you're in room 38, Sylvia.
Oh, I read 32.
No, I can see here. Oh, hang on. No. Somebody else just came up.
Sylvia El Chami, Sylvia Christou. I haven't had a prompt to go to join.
I think everyone should join breakout room.
Yep. If you see a prompt or a new window, just click join, and then that will be okay.
Okay, I haven't got a prompt yet. So join breakout room. Okay.
Yep.
I think breakout room has a.
Yep.
Hello, I'm Anastasia and I don't have a prompt either. I can't see a prompt anywhere. I can see all the breakout rooms listed below, but there's no...
You may
Well,
behind the screen because
Yeah.
you may have multiple windows. You may just
Yeah.
behind it,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
somewhere on the screen there will be a small button, say "Join Breakout Room."
Yep.
If we miss out the prompt, the first one pop up window, it will become a very small icon, I think.
We got about 34 participants here. So Phil, how about we do this as one breakout room?
You can, I think, or you close all the room and restart. I know breakout room, you have a function that you can join automatic. You let participant join automatic.
That's okay. Vince, like, how about we just treat this as a big breakout room?
Oh, I tried to join my room, but no one there. I mean, yeah.
It could be that
Because they're here.
Yeah, because you're here and everybody else is here. So how about we take a look at this and let's use, if you have been having difficulties joining breakout room, let's just stay here and we are going to use this as the big breakout room. If you can see it, then can we say okay in the chat? Okay, so I think like let's take a look at the activities. The activity is that we are suggest some teaching learning strategy that you can enhance your students' ability to learn their community language autonomously. I'm going to put that in the chat. So if you are in this big room, could you please unmute yourself and join in the, and show your video and join it. Can anybody suggest one activities that can enhance their ability to learn their language autonomously? Do we have any suggestions? Game. Vince, would you like to explain a little bit more? And Doreen have songs.
Focusing on ability there, how can we make people more able to be actively involved in their learning, to be more engaged? Group activities, yeah, I think that's right. Visuals, yeah.
And if you're happy to unmute yourself, you can also give a little bit more information. Using visuals, what do you mean by using visuals? I am typing in into documents and breakout room 31.
I use the, normally I use the visual because I'm the artist, so I always use a visual for student to cut and paste or just make the things, like when I teaching strawberry and I teaching them how to make strawberry. So yeah, even now, even the parents are joining the making. And I think this is a good idea to engage, for a student to engage the activity and remember. It's easy to remember what's this is strawberry, and yeah.
Ah, that's amazing idea.
And you're using your own talents. You're putting something of yourself.
Yeah, and I also
learning.
enjoy making. So it's like everyone's hands-on, and I can see the moms really enjoy to helping.
Because if you share your skills and your passions with the students, you encourage them to share their own skills and their passions as well.
Yeah.
I think. Okay, Alice or
Yes.
Han, I think we should call people back because that'll leave a bit more time for the second activity, and we can hope that that works out better.
It's going to take, Phil, it'll take about 60 seconds.
Yep.
Sorry?
60 seconds.
What? Yeah, coming
The
back.
breakout room to close.
We had about 40 people who couldn't get in, but that means we had about 120 who did get in. So at least that's good.
So some students say that they can open the activity, but they cannot fill in, like they cannot type in.
Many people have typed in the Google Doc, though.
Yeah, like I tried to assist group number 43, but like one of the attendee cannot type in. And I try to type in, I still can type, but they cannot type.
Okay. So let's make sure that, sorry, I'm just talking to my two co-hosts here. Let's make sure that everybody opens Google Doc for activity 2 now, before we get to the activity. And then people can go, when they receive that message, they can respond immediately. Yeah, for the second one. That may work better. Because I'm just wondering, I think if maybe people were trying to open the Google Doc when the message arrived, then somehow the message disappeared behind different screens. So that could be the case. Somebody said they could see the chat in the breakout room. So that's excellent, because you can also go back and get that means you can go back and get the Google Doc from there. I think nearly most people are back, are they? We've had 193 come back, is that right? Everybody back?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a little difficulty for some people to get into the breakout rooms. So what I would suggest is we're going to have another breakout activity in about 10 minutes. And could I suggest that you download the Google Doc for activity 2 right now before the activity. And when that message to join the breakout room arrives on your computer, you can respond immediately. And I said that you couldn't access the chat and the Google Doc from the breakout room, but that's not true. You can access the chat from the breakout room, so you can also get the Google Doc from there. So the next time, I suggest as soon as the message arrives to join the breakout room, respond and go there immediately, because I just wonder if the message is disappearing before you have chance to respond. That may not be the reason, but it may be the reason. Okay. Anyway, if you've been thinking about the issues, for the second activity, if you cannot get into the breakout room, we will just make a breakout room here for those people who can't get in. We'll go straight to that. Now, I'm just saying you can spend a little time now looking at the responses. You can continue to type in the Google Doc for Activity one if you wish to, and you can download that at the end of the session to see what other people have responded. I can see some interesting responses from many of the groups already. Yep. But I think at this moment, I need to move on. Alice, can you see my screen sharing? Can you see my presentation?
And you're in the Google Doc.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you can see it now, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, for the last thing I want to do in this session actually is introduce to you my ideas about 10 strategies that you can use. I call these pedagogical strategies. That's a kind of a bit of a mouthful of a word. Teaching ideas, we can call them, to try to put into action some of the things that I've been talking about. So if you keep in mind a kind of checklist of 5 things. So if I'm planning teaching, not necessarily an activity, because one activity cannot do everything, but if I was planning, say, you know, a whole term or semester of teaching, I might ask myself, what am I doing to help people's ability to learn autonomously? What am I doing to help people's desire? What am I doing to give them more freedom? What am I doing to increase personal relevance? What am I doing to increase ownership of the language? I might use those 5 things as a kind of checklist to think, am I really, you know, what am I doing here? Am I really helping people to learn more autonomously? Now here, I break that down into 10 what I call easy to apply teaching strategies that can help engage learners. And my idea is simply, if these kinds of activities or strategies become a regular feature of teaching, they will almost automatically help learners to become more autonomous. So if the style of teaching or the style of teaching and learning in the classroom involves these things, then you don't have to think too much about whether you're engaging learners, whether they're learning autonomously or not. It will just happen. Now, obviously, they're going to put these in the form of fairly general principles, and it will be up to you to decide how they can best be used to engage learners to learn the language, the particular language that you teach. So here they are, tasks with engaged learners. I won't spend a long time describing each one because they are self-explanatory, but I will give a little bit of extra information. If they involve learner preparation, so if learners come to the class having done some preparation, and I don't necessarily mean study, it could be quite a simple thing that they do, they have an investment in the class already. They bring something to the class, they have some investment and some reason to be there. The second one is about learner design of tasks. Many of the things that we design for students in class, students can design them themselves. Quizzes, tests, exercises, and so on. Students can design these. And if the students design them, they're very good at doing so. In fact, if the students design them, then that gives them, again, much more involvement, much more engagement in the experience of learning. Drawing on out-of-class experience is important. Often the classroom is a kind of self-contained world that is isolated from the outside world. So as far as possible, it helps engagement if we try to connect classroom activities with out-of-class experiences, particularly with ways in which the students are using their community languages outside of the class, in the family, for example, or with friends, with popular culture, and so on. Tasks that involve independent inquiry are very good from my point of view. Project work particularly helps engagement a great deal. And by independent inquiry, I mean really the student is going to find out something for themselves using resources that are probably outside the classroom. They could be inside the classroom, but without being told. They go find out themselves rather than be told. Tasks that involve student-student interaction are very useful. Much classroom interaction is between the teacher and the student. And when that happens, it tends to be the teacher who talks, not the students. So when students are interacting with each other, that can help engagement a great deal. Students use the language more. Number 6 is using real language and materials as opposed to textbook languages. And I know that many of the languages that we teach, there is quite a difference between the language that is taught in formal textbooks, the standard languages that are taught in formal textbooks, and the languages that are used in the family, and so on. So using real language, I believe, is important, particularly with community languages. Peer teaching, which means students teaching each other. So if a task involves independent inquiry, then the student has found out something that the other students don't know. And the students can teach that to each other. They can teach what they find out to each other. So peer teaching, again, is a very valuable activity for engagement. Tasks that produce multiple outcomes. Many of the tasks that we design, a test, for example, tends to produce the same outcome from each student. So if the students are successful, they will all produce the same language. That will be the criteria of success in that task. Other kinds of tasks produce multiple or what we call divergent outcomes. So each student produces something different. And this creates an opportunity for those outcomes to be shared among the class, for students to see each other's work. The number 9 is tasks that involve self-assessment or peer assessment. So students can teach, basically students can design tasks, they can teach each other, and they can also assess and evaluate. So these are 3 aspects of the process that students can have more responsibility for. And the last one, if tasks are followed by reflection, if at the end of a lesson or at the end of a course, you join with the students to ask the students, what did you think of that? What did you learn? All of these are, this can be a good way to conclude a lesson to encourage more engagement. So those are 2 activities that I don't want to go into in much more detail because the important thing is for you yourselves to work out how you can, these are just basic principles or ideas that you can work out how to implement in your own classroom, because it will depend on the language you're teaching, the level of the students. And many of these activities actually you'll probably be thinking are applicable to mixed ability classes. Because they individualize teaching and learning, they're particularly suitable for mixed ability classes and for differentiated teaching. So it's up to you really to think about how you can do that. And breakout activity 2 is asking you to do that. So I'm running a little bit late according to my schedule for the class. So we have a little bit less time for this activity than I thought we'd. So let's go straight into it. So you need to open up the Google Doc. I see the invitations have gone out now. So click that invitation straight away. These instructions are in the Google Doc, so you can get them there when you join the breakout room. So we'll be back in 15 minutes or so.
Okay, I'm just going to stay here and help with the big room.
Yeah, so it's the same task for everybody. So we can do it in this big room. It's just a bigger room. The numbers going down.
I think we just wait for 1 more minute, and if anybody have difficulties.
I can't be sure, but my guess is if you're accessing via a mobile phone, you may not be able to join the breakout room.
Right.
That could be one reason. We have about 30 something people. Why don't you facilitate this room, Alice, and we'll just.
Okay. Can you go back to the, can you move back to the 10 strategies then, please? The previous slide.
Okay. They're also in the Google Doc. Yeah.
Yep. They're also, like, then I have to share it. Okay, so hi everybody. If you are having trouble joining another breakout rooms, we can all stay here for the next 10 minutes. We can happily discuss some of the activities here. So our task is actually very simple. You see the 10 teaching ideas on your screen. So what we would like to suggest is that which one do you want to pick? We just need to pick one activities, one teaching ideas. And if you think about how you can use this in your classroom, or if you had already used that in a classroom, so what are some of the difficulties that you have, or you can think that your students may encounter, and if you have any solutions, then you can also suggest that. And there are only 10 teaching ideas here. If you would like to suggest one more, that will be brilliant as well. Okay, so if you are happy to unmute yourself or show your video, then that will be perfect. I am going into breakout room number 45, and I'm just going to share my screen. Could you stop sharing screen for 1 second, please, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm just going to share the screen from here.
What's happened? I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
What happened, Sevi?
Hi, Alex. How are you? It keeps coming up as a message and it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So I can't bring up the Google document so I can actually start typing it like I did for activity 1.
Oh, right.
And I sent a message in the chat to say they need to unmute me and start the videoing, but I can't do anything more. Like it actually says it's an orange triangle hazard and it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
That's me.
Oh, sorry.
I did this earlier today because it was a way of, let me see if we can, look, I think we can't do anything. You might have to sort of write things down yourselves for this session, okay?
Yeah, I tried to tell them if they've got it on at their end, but they can't actually hear me either. So I'm trying to do 2 things at once for them.
Who can't hear you? Who can't hear you?
My team, breakout room number 21.
No, I mean, I can hear you.
Yeah, and I can hear because we're holding a conversation, but I'm not hearing any response from them. From Nazreen, Lei Fong, and...
Lei Fong is there. There you go.
Oh,
yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
I'm here.
Here we go. There you go. There you go.
I'm here too.
Awesome.
Look, you discuss this amongst yourselves. So that's probably the best thing to do.
Yep.
And if the Google Doc isn't going to work this time, you're just going to have to maybe take notes.
Okay,
I'm going to have to leave the room to see if I can.
Yeah, appreciate it.
The
other thing, Alex, is I sent earlier on in the piece, I couldn't find the link in the chat for us to tick next to our names, the courses that we've attended.
I'm going to do that later.
Oh, beautiful. All right, then. Thank you.
No,
I'm jumping the gun. Sorry. All right.
No,
if someone can just read out the question again, because I can't get access.
45 at the moment.
Perhaps if anybody would just like to say what they think about these strategies, or whether they have any additional strategies, any comments at all on the strategies that I've suggested would be great. Thanks, Anne.
Okay, so Phil, you will have to share this. No, actually, okay. I think somebody mentions that using real language and materials. So Manda House in Australia mentioned that. What do you mean by using real language and materials? Does it just mean that we are reading why would, I mean, like, so you mean that no textbook?
Sorry, who are you asking?
I'm just asking. Maybe we should start calling them back a little bit earlier so that.
I can't see that. Alex, if we want to finish on time,
yep,
we should get people back in.
Yep, I've just closed the room, so it's going to take a couple of seconds still.
Okay, so you said you wanted to talk. Do you want to talk before 7:30 or after?
It's up to you. I mean, if you need to finish now, I mean, soon, that's fine. I can wait. I just need a couple of minutes.
I think I'm just going to do an open question and answer now.
Sure. Sure.
And then maybe I'll finish that at 7:25. Give you 5 minutes. Yeah.
No worries.
Yep, I'm just going to stop sharing. If I can find it.
You've stopped sharing, so I can start again. Okay, welcome back. We've experimented with breakout rooms, and I think that's worked for most people. I think that typing in the Google Doc may have been difficult because there are so many of us trying to type into the document at the same time. So you can continue to do that. And I would suggest, if you are interested to see what other groups have done, download that document at 7:30 at the end of the session. Download it to your own computer, and then you can have a copy and look at it later. At this point, I think what I want to do is actually stop sharing my screen and just ask for questions or comments. How do we want to handle this, Alice? Should we just do?
Yep. And before we get into individual floors, question from the floor, I just want to say that looking at the Google Doc number 2, the activities, there are a lot of quite amazing activities. It might have a time lag for many people. Just be patient. You might want to revisit the Google Doc later tonight, and everything is going to be there. Okay, so I think people are still putting in some of the answers, and I can see a lot of really amazing suggestions and ideas.
Yeah. So if there are problems with the breakout rooms or the Google Doc, welcome to just mention that in the chat. But what I'd like to ask, do you have any questions or comments on the content of what I presented today? And if you want to do so, just unmute yourself, put your video on if you like, and ask away.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
That Payam? Yes, you can.
Okay. I want to ask you about the number 9. You know, if we share the suggestion or assessment with the students, the students can assess and create their assessment. Maybe the assessment not contain all of our purpose. Okay, and we can't say to them, this assessment not good, or this your suggestion is not good. Maybe we disappoint them, and it's very important. We always encourage them to speak and be always active in our class.
Yes.
How can solve this problem?
What is the problem exactly?
If according to the number 9,
yeah,
as you said,
so I think that it's good for students to assess themselves and assess each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
how can they assess each other? You mean create the assessment or just assess each other?
Well, I think it's quite often that we say that self-assessment is difficult because students don't know how to assess themselves.
Yeah, correct.
Can I say something? Excuse me.
What's important is that they learn to assess each other and learn to assess themselves, because when you're out there in the real world and you're speaking a language or you're writing a language, you have to assess yourself. There's nobody out there to tell you whether, you know, what you're saying is right or wrong, or whether it's appropriate or not appropriate. You have to make that judgment yourself, and often make that judgment based on responses from other people. So for me, self-assessment and peer assessment are really things that students need to learn how to do if you introduce self-assessment and peer assessment into your teaching, for sure, they will find it difficult at first. And I would recommend don't make it a self-assessment or peer assessment of something that's really important.
Yeah.
You know, start with things that are not important or things that are not.
You mean we can prepare our students to assess themselves?
Yes, yes, yes. But the only way to prepare them is really to give them the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you've got an important test or an important examination, don't let another student fail.
Yeah, of course.
Give them
Excuse me.
On the situation. Yeah. Who's that? Who's speaking?
Excuse me, Nasreen.
Yeah, Nasreen. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's self-assessment should be for a student. You can give them some words, for example, some question, and they make and create another thing together with a team, 1, 2, or 3 person to one team, and they make a assessment, and they make a, for example, a story or playing or something such as this. In this one should be the self-assessment, and the student use from some idea we give them, and they make some new things.
Yeah. You know, a very simple self-assessment is a student will come to me and say, you know, how do I spell this word? How do I write this word? Am I correct?
Yes.
So either I can tell him the answer, then that's me doing the assessment. Or I can ask him, why don't you just go look in the dictionary? Yeah. And then the student will be doing self-assessment. It's very simple. It's a very simple thing.
Yes.
Very simple thing.
Thank you.
And a lot of engaging students is making very simple decisions like that when you're teaching. To think like, okay, I'm doing too much work here as a teacher. Can the student do some of this work? Yeah. Incidentally,
Thank you.
one of our teachers for one of the later sessions in this course will, I think, be looking at the whole question of assessment and learner-oriented assessment. That's Aggie Bodis, who will be one of our presenters later. She'll be looking at this issue in more detail.
Yes, hi, it's me. I'm going to give you some, and we're going to talk about some specific examples as well, and you're going to brainstorm some more. So I'm going to touch up on all these 10 strategies organized into
all of them. That's brilliant.
Well, I hope so.
That's great.
Let me just check.
That's great.
All of them, most of them at least.
Yeah.
Possibly all of them. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
May I?
Yes. Yes.
I was just, Susanna, yes. I was just wondering if you have any wonderful formula, because I noticed in the community language, when they are kids, small, in younger age, they come to the school because they have a necessity of speaking with the grandparents. They need to speak the language. And after they start growing, and they know already the basics, so the language is then it's not personal anymore. It's not challenging, you know. It's a necessity still to speak with the grandparents. So I was just wondering, how do I try to become personal for them, you know, challenging, you know, if they autonomous, like you said, because the country is so far away from Australia, the language is so far away. So it becomes.
I think possibly it depends. What's the language? Sorry.
Portuguese.
Portuguese.
From Portugal, yes. It's the other hemisphere.
Okay. There are many resources online, right?
Yes, well, yes and no. They are Portuguese from Brazil, but not from Portugal.
Not from Portugal?
Yes. There are a lot of resources from Brazil. And the problem is also there's 11 hours difference. So it's very hard to, you know, maintain a real activity on time at the moment and to engage,
Yeah. But I think in general, the problem, I can't really answer that specifically for Portuguese in Portugal. But in general, I see the point that you're making, that motivation to speak across generations and within the family takes you a certain way, but not further. But I honestly think the important thing is to find ways in which students can do things that they do in their age group using that language. You know, whether it's comic books or, you know, TV animations or whatever it is. If there's something that will attract them, that's in the sphere of their life of things they really enjoy doing, but they can do it in another language. I think that's really the most valuable thing. But as I say, I think it's, you know, it has to be worked out specifically for each language, because you've raised a very, very specific problems there about time zones and different national varieties of language.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you.
Maybe time for one more question.
Can I ask question?
Yes. Zainab, is that?
Zainab, yes, correct.
Yeah.
Look, I think that a question Suzanne's mentioned is not only for the Portuguese language and for any language. What I saw, because I have a wide experience in teaching languages, the problem is not every school and not every public school promote the language. Like, for example, we find many high school and the primary school in Sydney, they're not offering languages at all. So they don't offer, for an example, an Arabic, because I'm teaching Arabic and French. So, for example, to find the language Arabic, you have to move toward Lakemba or Liverpool, wherever, while we have many high school in other areas where the Arabic language is zero, and not only the Arabic language and different language too. So if we're not promoting the language in the public system and in high school, how we are going to encourage our students to speak the language? So for example, they can speak language, they can have that language till year 6, and then no more year seven teaching Arabic. They have to go to Saturday school. That Saturday school is far away from them. I'm talking about specific areas.
Yeah.
So I think that's the major issue for the promoting the language.
Well, I agree with you. I can't really comment on that, except to say that I agree with you. And of course, this is why the community language schools are doing such an amazing job. And they're doing the job of the schools, actually. They're doing a job that schools should be doing much more. So I can only agree with you on that, really.
Yeah, because I asked a student, like in my school, I said, why don't go to Saturday school? Oh, we don't know. So they don't know if, you know, that language is there. So we have to promote it. We have to, for the media, with everything. That's it, when you engage all students or for example, specific student with their home language to go and check, you know, with the flyers, with the, you know, the things like that. That's just my opinion anyway.
Okay, I agree.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to need to hand over to Alex. But Alice, did we have any word clouds that we can show while Alex is talking? While Alex is talking, did you have any word clouds to share?
Yep, I have one really amazing one.
So I'm not sharing, so you can do anything you like.
That's your words for your learners.
Well, beautiful. Doesn't even fit on the screen.
Yeah, it doesn't even fit on the screen. It's just way too big there. Yeah. So I'm just going to email that to Alex and let him have the headache.
Thank you. Great, thanks. It's really kind of you, Alice. Thank you.
So hand over to you, Alex.
All right, thanks, Phil. and Alice and Ha'an, and everybody that participated. Thank you to Macquarie University. Thanks to the community language schools, to all of the teachers that spent some time. Look, at 7:30, we're going to stop on the dot. Just one last thing. I posted a link for everyone. This is for your certificates of attendance. I'm going to have to put it in again. If you didn't see it, there it is there. If you want a certificate of attendance, please just click on that and tick tonight's session only, and we'll have to just send these out a bit further down the track. The last thing I wanted to end up with is basically, don't forget this Thursday, Jeremy Harmer, very well-known ELT speaker, world-famous author of texts for teachers. Teachers, not academic necessarily, but for teachers like you, teachers of a second language. Okay, so Jeremy Harmer, huge name. He is ELT, English language teaching, but teaching a language is generally pretty common, a lot of common ground there. So please take this opportunity. It's only 1 hour from this Thursday evening, 6 to 7 p.m. The other thing, we'll see you next Monday, if not, and have a lovely evening. That's it from us. Don't forget the session is recorded. And that's it. And good night. Thank you.
Sorry, Alex, where to find the certificate again?
We'll send them to you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.